Oh, wow.
I feel so full right now.
Well, I have CDs. I mean, I got
That will
you.
be part of our of my children's morning routine.
Wow, that's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Literary Manhattan, and especially to Michael, Aaron, and Nephi, and also to Marissa, who invited me here. And it's just such an honor to read with you also. So this is from my novel, Cutting Teeth, that's coming out next year. And this character, there's 6 perspectives, 4 mothers, 1 stay-at-home dad, and a Tibetan nanny who are all in the same Brooklyn play group. And they're all parents to children 4 and under. And I chose this piece because it's about Tiffany, who grew up working class on Long Island and came to this city to find her own version of the American dream. Tiffany had loved her mother's white leather dress. "Zip me, baby," her mother said each night she tugged the dress on over her black strapless bra, and Tiffany, just 8 years old, had stood on tiptoes to make the zipper glide right to the top. "I could pass for your sister in this." Her mother turned her padded shoulders and smoothed the leather that clung to her hips as she examined herself in the mirror. "Don't you think, Tiff?" "Totally," Tiffany said, because she knew that was what her mother wanted to hear. "It's going to be a good night," her mother said with a deep and hopeful exhale. Tiffany's mother always left the house looking perfect on a first date. Not a crease in her dress, not a scuff on her matching white pumps, not a crimp in her blown out and hairspray stiffened hair. She smelled of Jean Naté body wash and Chloe perfume. Tiffany could still taste the mint on her mother's brown pencil-lined lips as she kissed her goodnight, and the white leather creaking climbed into whatever pickup truck, Bronco, or Trans Am her date was driving. As Tiffany looked into the dusty mirror of the beach house's guest bedroom, she could still smell that leather. How silly she'd been thinking that damn dress the end-all be-all of fashion and womanly beauty, when really it was the tackiest thing on earth. She dipped her lipstick brush into the little glass pot of Chanel No. 3 Coral Harmony, a gift from old Susie Harcourt, Tiffany's former employer. Years ago, when Tiffany had stepped off the Greyhound bus and into the grime-coated Port Authority, a 22-year-old worth less than $700, she'd been struck lucky, hired by society semi-diva Susie Harcourt, nee Vanderley, whose twins Tiffany would nanny on the Upper East Side until her own Harper was born. Susie taught Tiffany all she'd need to know to blend in with women's several tax brackets above the mommies in Tiffany's Brooklyn playgroup. Susie had taught her to be a class chameleon, and Tiffany had learned that florals and plaids could go together if you had enough blue blood flowing through your veins, that straight hair versus curly spoke of refinement, and that anything frosted, bleached, or acid washed was out of the question, a blinking red sign that you were trash. Susie had taught her about quality, of bed sheets, of furniture, of wine and cheese, of clothes. Tiffany had put money aside each paycheck until she had enough to buy a dress on consignment at a chic second-hand boutique. Susie had revealed to Tiffany the secret code, which colors to wear, black was always safe, books to read, movies to watch, magazines to peruse. Tiffany had thrived, so much so that one night, 4 years ago, Tiffany had made Michael fall in love with her. Michael, who had a degree from a private university, who ate sushi, who used words like woodsy, floral, and earthy when drinking wine, who dated women with trust funds, and who was pulling in close to $100,000 a year. More than Tiffany's mechanic father had made in 5 years. Now Tiffany twirled from side to side in front of the dusty guest room mirror, so her skirt rippled up in the air. "Look at me now, Mama." Buying lavender-infused truffles, honeysuckle-scented air infuser, using cloth napkins, employing a house cleaner, paying to have her eyebrows waxed. Move over, Gatsby. She was practically a super yuppie. If Susie and her Tory Burch sporting friends had known about Tiffany's mother's white leather dress, they'd never have let her walk through the doorman-guarded lobbies of their luxury buildings. How their wrinkle-free foreheads would have cracked with concern if they'd known about her mother's slutting around, not to mention her sister Leanne, the meth head, and to top it off, Tiffany's abortions. Though Tiffany knew rich women had abortions, the difference was they didn't have to drive down to a clinic in the middle of a small town. They were chauffeured to dim-lit parking garages in Midtown and took an elevator to a pristine doctor's office where they were the one and only guest. Their uterus was scooped clean as innocuous classical music played over an intercom. And they left almost as they came, sight unseen, not a peep to anyone. Money not only equaled time, Tiffany had learned. Money meant privacy, protection. And by the time Tiffany had met Susie, she'd been screwing around for 22 years, and she was ready for a little protection and a lot of change. She was ready to be born again into the light of Kate Spade and Nicole Miller and Chanel. Amen. Tiffany was 17 when she'd made it out of her middle of fucking nowhere hick town for the first time. Sick of her father taking half her waitressing paycheck for rent, sick of her friends crying about their loser boyfriends, sick of her stepbrother asking her to suck him off. For 4 years she'd scraped by in the greatest city in the world. Bartending, dog walking, working in a souvenir shop in Times Square that sold the Statue of Liberty in 1,000 different forms, soap holders, back scratches, thermometers. Then one night after a party in a factory loft in Williamsburg where everyone was rolling on E and laying tabs of acid in the shape of blazing suns on their tongues, she had woke in a dark room on a stripped mattress that smelled like puke, unable to speak or move as some guy pounded into her. She'd spent the rest of that night willing her body to move, begging her body to roll off the bed, sit up, move, goddammit, and finally she'd crawled to the door only to realize she couldn't turn the knob. Her body had betrayed her. They came back maybe 3, maybe 4 times that night. She'd never know how many times, how many guys who. She'd never known if they had drugged her. She had taken the E and acid herself. When she made it back to her apartment, the sky a battered violet with the coming dawn, she stayed in her room, leaving only to go to the bathroom and to open the door for the delivery guy from the convenience store. Days passed, her 23rd birthday came and went. Her roommates in that mouse-infested loft in Williamsburg, all sweet suburban-bred girls whose parents, in Tiffany's humble opinion, had loved them too much, had taken care of her. They fed her microwaved ramen from styrofoam bowls. They washed her clothes. They guided her to the already running shower and massaged shampoo into her hair. They stubbed out her cigarettes after she'd fallen asleep. But when the 1st of the month came, and then the 7th and the 14th, and Tiffany still hadn't slipped her portion of the rent into the envelope taped to the fridge, they asked her to leave. She ate her last bowl of ramen and swallowed her last Klonopin, a gift from her most recent ex, the prescription drug dealer Ivy League grad. And Tiffany had gone back home to her middle of fucking nowhere hometown, out on the end of Long Island. She visited her father and stepmother Shelley over casserole dinners at their ramshackle house, a trailer with ill-proportioned adjoining rooms her father had built himself. For 3 brisk autumn nights, she'd sat with her father and Shelley under the oak trees, the night smelling of low tide and fire smoke as they roasted chestnuts over the pit. Shelley filled her in on who had married who had whose baby, who had collected enough DUIs to send them to jail, who had finished at the community college, and who had left for the city, only to return less than a year later. As she listened to the lilting waltz of Shelley's voice, Tiffany tried to remember how to talk in that way, the slow-paced chit-chat that mimicked the swaying branches above. She'd been practicing the speedy, scrutinizing discourse of the young metropolitans for years, the quicksilver tongue that jumped from earnest to irreverent in a flash. And she knew she had to go back. She stood and turned to the crack road that led to the town. She walked the 3 miles, the cold, salt-filled wind of the nearby shore stinging her cheeks. She prayed to God as she walked, as her sweat-damp hair froze into solid strips. She slept on the chilled aluminum bench at the Greyhound stop, and when the bus pulled up, she left for good. She wasn't like the other mommies, she thought. They could feel safe in a godless world, so much so that they'd brag about it, as she'd heard them do many times. It's not like I believe in God or anything. Well, you know, I believe in free will. Not believing in a higher power was a privilege, Tiffany knew. A woman had to have a shitload of self-esteem to walk around thinking she was the most important part of the world, that she called the shots, that she held the reins of her own fate.
Thank you so much, Julia. Next we have David Amram, and David is a musician, a composer, a conductor, and a storyteller. And he has collaborated with many amazing people throughout his life, and these people include Jack Kerouac and Leonard Bernstein. He has played the French horn in legendary jazz bands, and he's written